Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our series Guitar Chords. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to play a movable dominant ninth chord. So I'm going to break this lesson up into two parts. In this first video, I'm going to show you the chord, explain it to you, show you how to play it. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you some cool tips and tricks that you can use to really spice up the chord and make it more interesting. So be sure to check out the second lesson after you finish this one. If you'd like to get the diagram for this chord as well as the jam track that I played with at the beginning of this video, you can click the link on the screen and it'll take you to a place where you can download that for free, and that should really help you out as you're going through these lessons. So first off, I should mention that this lesson is for intermediate players, and you should have your basic bar chords down first before you take this lesson. And if you don't know your bar chords, or if you aren't that comfortable with them, I have lessons on how to play bar chords. You can look in the description, there's a link, and it'll take you through everything you need to know to learn bar chords and how to practice them and build your hand strength. So do that first if you haven't already, but if you know your basic bar chords, you can just jump right into this lesson. So I'm going to show you a movable dominant ninth chord, and movable just means that there's no open strings in it in the chord, so that you can move it anywhere up and down the fretboard and it's going to remain a dominant ninth chord. That's not going to change. The only thing that's going to change is the root is going to determine what it's called. So right now I'm holding a D as my root note, so this is a D9 chord. But if I moved it up half a step, that would be a D sharp or an E flat 9 chord. Move it up again, that'd be an E9 chord. So the actual name of the chord, as far as it being the dominant 9, which you would just call 9, stays the same. It's just your root determines what the actual letter name of it is. So I'm going to start on D. So I'm going to play a D9 for you just because it's in a good place on the neck. But you can move this shape once you learn it anywhere up and down the fretboard. It'll just be a different name as far as the root name goes. So here's what a D9 sounds like. And it's called a dominant ninth chord, but when you actually have the letter name in front of it, you would typically just call it a 9. So like I said, it's a D9 chord. You don't have to call it a D dominant 9. You know that it's the dominant chord just by the D and the 9 together. And if you don't understand that, that's something you'll learn when you get into theory and all of that. For now, you can just know that it's called a D9 chord. And there's many different options for playing this chord, many different voicings and places on the neck you can play it. This is probably the most common way to play it, so it's a really good place to start to learn a dominant 9 chord, and it's one that you'll use all the time once you get it down. So the fingering for this, and like I said, I'm starting on a D9, is your second finger on the 5th string, 5th fret, then your first finger on the 4th string, 4th fret, and then you have a little bar that you need to make with your third finger, which is going to catch the 3rd string 5th fret and the 2nd string 5th fret. So it's a little bar that you create with your third finger to catch those two notes together. And you could add in the 1st string 5th fret, but a lot of times that's just muted out. And you just mute it with the back of your third finger to keep that muted out. You can add it in if you want that higher note, but like I said, a lot of times it's left out. So it's just a preference and depends on the playing situation and what you're going for. So that's one way to hold it, and with this bar right here, that's probably going to be the hardest part. You're really going to have to arch your second finger over and avoid this 4th string, that you're not muting it with your second finger. It's going to really have to arch, and then you're really going to have to try to get your third finger to lay down to bar those two notes, and that probably take a while if you're not used to doing that. But once you get it down, it'll be pretty simple to you, and just like everything else on guitar. So that's one way to do it. Another way is you can actually add in your 4th finger and not have a bar. So instead of having a bar with your 3rd finger catching the 2nd and 3rd string in the 5th fret, you can use your 4th finger to catch the 2nd string 5th fret, and then your 3rd finger will just catch the 3rd string 5th fret, and it'll look like that. And a lot of people do it that way too, so it just depends. The reason it's nice to be able to bar is because you can add in higher notes if you do it. Do something like that, which is adding in the 13th, so that becomes a dominant 13 chord, but that's a really common thing to do, to add in that note. Or you could add it in and then have in the first string 5th fret underneath it, so you can move back and forth. There's lots of stuff you can do, but sometimes this is fine too, where you don't need to do anything like that. You could just add your 4th finger in. And also, there's a really common chord called a sharp 9, which having your 4th finger can move back and forth from the sharp 9 back to the regular 9, so the natural 9, so it sounds like this. And that sharp 9 chord is the Jimi Hendrix chord. It's a really common chord. So that's something I'll teach in another lesson, but you have it right there if you want it. So there's just, it really depends on the playing situation. It depends on if you're adding other notes in or what's really comfortable to you. So I recommend learning it both ways, because both ways are going to come in handy. But if you're really struggling with barring with your 3rd finger, you can just start with this, where you have your 4th finger catching the 2nd string. So that's a D9 chord, a D dominant 9. And like I said, it's a movable chord, so you can move it anywhere up and down the neck, and then your root note will just change the name of it, but it'll still be a dominant 9 chord. So play around with that and get it under your fingers, and then be sure to check out the next lesson where I show you some tips and tricks on how to really spice it up and make it more interesting. And also be sure to subscribe, because we add at least one new lesson every day.